The Late Show with Stephen Colbert studio was a pulsating hub of late-night energy, its sleek Broadway set aglow with vibrant lights and a raucous audience roaring with anticipation as the jazzy theme music faded, heralding a high-stakes interview on a stormy August 2025 evening. Vice President JD Vance, the Yale law graduate turned MAGA stalwart whose journey from hillbilly elegies Trump critic to 2024 vice presidential running mate had sparked relentless debate, strode onto the stage with a steely demeanor, his tailored suit and Midwestern grit drawing a mix of cheers and boos from the polarized crowd. He was there to defend the Trump-Vance administration's early policies on trade tariffs and border security, but the air crackled with the promise of a fiery clash. Given Stephen Colbert's reputation for biting satire and Vance's history of sharp retorts, as seen in his 2024 VP debate where he dismantled opponents with calculated precision, Colbert, perched at his desk with a mischievous grin, kicked things off. JD, welcome to The Late Show. You called Trump America's Hitler in 2016, yet here you are as his VP. How do you explain that flip-flop without looking like you sold your soul? The audience murmured, and Vance's jaw tightened, his voice steady but laced with edge. Stephen, I evolved with the time as Trump's saving this country. Unlike your monologues chasing cheap laughs, the crowd split, some clapping for Vance's boldness, others jeering, and Colbert's eyes twinkled. Evolved? Critics call you a political chameleon, anti-Trump then, MAGA now. Don't you worry, it screams opportunism. The question echoed unverified 2025 YouTube claims of a walk-off, and Vance leaned forward, his tone sharp. Opportunism, I'm fighting for forgotten Americans, Stephen, and not mocking them like your elitist comedy. The audience gasped, catching the jab, and Colbert's grin sharpened. Elitist? JD, your Yale degree and venture capital days aren't exactly coal miner vibe, so don't act shocked when we call out the hypocrisy. The studio buzzed with tension, and Vance countered, hypocrisy? I wrote the book on Struggle. Your show's the one peddling snark over substance. The crowd roared, some cheering Vance's fire, others reveling in Colbert's wit. Colbert tried to pivot, let's talk tariffs, your plan to protect workers, but Vance cut him off. Tariffs save jobs, Stephen, and unlike your flip-flops on issues for applause. The audience erupted, split between loyalties, as Colbert's face flushed. Flip-flops? JD, you're dodging a you called Trump a cultural heroine. Now you're his cheerleader. Vance's voice rose. Cheerleader? I'm VP because I deliver. Your questions are just gotchas. The producers, watching from the control room, exchanged frantic glances. This was spiraling beyond satire, mirroring debunked YouTube tales. Colbert pressed, gotchas? You wrote Trump was a disaster and now you're his sidekick? That's not evolution. It's a sellout. Vance half stood, his eyes blazing. Sellout, you're twisting my story for clicks. Stephen. The crowd was electric, cameras zooming in on Vance's glare and Colbert's smirk, priming the stage for a fiery confrontation that would dominate headlines. Though no verified 2025 incident occurred. As The Late Show with Stephen Colbert returned from a commercial break, the studio was a pressure cooker, the audience buzzing with excitement after the fiery opening exchange between JD Vance and Stephen Colbert. The set's bold graphics felt almost mocking against the simmering tension, as Colbert tried to reset with his signature charm. Welcome back, folks. Vice President JD Vance is here, and we're digging into his story. But Vance, seated with arms crossed, wasn't buying the charm. His eyes locked on Colbert. Digging? Stephen, you've got more shots at my pasta. Let's hear AM, he said, his voice dripping with challenge. The crowd gasped, and Colbert leaned forward, his smile strained but playful. JD, I'm just curious. Your book slammed Trump as a demagogue, but now you're his right hand. Don't you worry that betrays the principles you wrote about? The question doubled down on the flip-flop narrative, and Vance's jaw clenched. Betray? Stephen, I saw Trump's vision for America, and unlike your comedy that mocks the working class, he fired back, his tone slicing through the applause. The audience erupted, some cheering Vance's retort, others murmuring at the dig. Colbert, unfazed, raised an eyebrow. Mocks? JD, You're giving us this every manimagia. Don't act surprised when we ask if it's genuine. The jab was sharp, and Vance's voice rose. Genuine? I've lived this struggle, Stephen, and not like your Manhattan studio chasing ratings. The crowd roared, and a guest panelist, a fictional pundit named Sarah Thompson, tried to intervene. JD, your trade policies are bold, let's talk them. But Vance waved her off. No, Sarah, I'm tired of Stephen painting me as a traitor for evolving. The accusation landed like a punch, and Colbert's grin faltered, his tone sharpening. Traitor? JD, I'm just doing my job asking questions. You're the one getting defensive. The audience was in a frenzy, some chanting JD, while others clapped for Colbert's edge. Vance leaned forward, his voice booming. Defensive? You're implying I sold my soul, Stephen, like I'm some political fraud. The crowd gasped, and Colbert's face reddened, his voice trembling with frustration. Fraud? JD, I respect your story, but you're acting like I am gutting your entire career. Vance's eyes narrowed, his tone icy. You are gutting it, Stephen, turning my journey into a punchline. I thought this was a real talk, but wrong. The studio was chaos, the audience on its feet, as the producers signaled frantically for the house band, John Batista's Stay Human, to play. The music started, but it couldn't drown out the drama. Colbert, his hands gesturing wildly, fired back. Wrong, JD, you're making this personal, acting like I'm the enemy. This is The Late Show. Vance stood, his hands on his hips. The Late Show? You're using me for viral clips, Stephen, and I'm not here for it. The crowd roared, and Colbert stood too, his voice booming. Viral? JD, you chose the spotlight. Don't cry foul when I ask tough questions. The audience gasped, and the cameras stayed locked on the two, capturing every moment of the escalating feud. Vance's face contorted with fury. Tough questions? You're slinging mud to look clever, Stephen. I'm done. The producers, now in full panic, signaled for security, but the stage was a powder keg, and the fuse was burning fast. Despite no verified 2025 clash occurring, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert's studio was a tinderbox, the air crackling with the heat of the escalating clash between JD Vance and Stephen Colbert, the audience on the edge of their seats as the verbal duo reached a boiling point. Vance, now standing, loomed over the set, his suit jacket unbuttoned as he pointed at Colbert. You think you're slick, Stephen, turning my life into your comedy circus, but I'm not your flip-flopping punchline. The crowd roared, split between those who admired Vance's fire and those who lived for Colbert's satire. Colbert, standing to match him, his voice sharp. Punchline, JD, you're serving up this heartland hero imagery. Don't act shocked when I question it. The jab was brutal, echoing unverified 2025 YouTube claims of Colbert mocking Vance's authenticity, and Vance's voice boomed. Question? You're accusing me of betraying my roots, Stephen, when I'm fighting for them. The audience gasped, and the band tried to play a light riff, but the noise was drowned out by the crowd's cheers. Colbert, his eyes glinting, fired back. Fighting? JD, your book called Trumpet Disaster, now you're his VP. That's not fighting, it's flipping. The crowd gasped, and Vance's face reddened, his voice trembling with fury. Flipping? I've stood for the forgotten, Stephen, and I'm still standing. The insult was a direct hit, and Colbert's smile vanished, his tone icy. Standing? You chose the VP slot. Just I don't cry foul when I do my job. The studio was chaos, the audience on its feet, as Sarah tried to regain control. JD, your policies have impact. Let's focus there. Vance, his fists clenched, snapped. Impact? Stephen's twisting my story into clickbait, Sarah, and I'm sick of it. The crowd roared, some chanting JD, while others shouted Colbert. As the tension skyrocketed, Colbert, his hands on his hips, shot back. Clickbait. You gave us the script with your anti-Trump book. Just I don't get mad when I read it. Vance's voice rose to a shout. Read it? You're attacking my integrity, Stephen, like I'm some political hack. The audience gasped, and Colbert's eyes narrowed, his voice booming. Hack? I'm holding you accountable. Just something your base lets you dodge. The jab was a low blow, and Vance took a step closer, his voice a low growl. "Accountable? You're just chasing laughs, Stephen, and I'm not your prop." The crowd was in a frenzy, sensing the climax, as Colbert fired back, "Prop? This is the Late Show, JD. If you can't handle the heat, there's the door." Vance's eyes flashed with fury, his voice a shout. "Heat? You went too far, Stephen." He slammed his hand on the desk, the sound echoing through the studio, and turned toward the wings, his strides purposeful. The audience roared, some cheering his exit, others booing Colbert's audacity. As security moved in, unsure whether to follow, the cameras stayed locked on Vance, capturing the moment that would dominate headlines. Though no verified 2025 appearance by Vance involved such a clash, the producers, in full panic mode, signaled for the band to play, but the music couldn't drown out the chaos. As Vance paused at the edge, turning back with a steely gaze, "I fight for America, not your laughs." As JD Vance's silhouette vanished into the wings of the Late Show with Stephen Colbert's studio, the set descended into pandemonium, the audience's cheers and boos merging into a deafening roar that echoed through the Broadway space. Stephen Colbert stood behind his desk, his face a mix of shock and defiance, as the band played a frantic riff to cover the awkward silence. "Well, folks, that's what happens when you get real on the Late Show," he quipped, trying to regain control, but his voice betrayed a hint of unease. The crowd laughed, but the tension lingered, some chanting JD in solidarity, others applauding Colbert's boldness. Backstage, the producers were in a frenzy, their headsets crackling with urgent orders as they debated whether to cut to a pre-taped segment or let Colbert ride out the storm. The cameras, still rolling, caught Colbert adjusting his glasses, his smirk returning as he addressed the chaos. "All right, everyone, JD's passionate, and we love Fana, let's give him a hand." The crowd complied, but it was half-hearted, the room still reeling from the drama. Social media was already ablaze, with clips of the confrontation going viral, fans and critics dissecting every word, every gesture. Some praised Vance for standing up to Colbert's perceived shade, calling his walk-off and parting words, "I fight for America, not your laughs," a bold stand against liberal media, while others accused him of overreacting, unable to handle the heat of late-night satire, as seen in ex-posts about political sensitivity. The narrative was spiraling, just as Vance had warned, his words about being twisted into a caricature proving prophetic. Though no verified 2025 clash occurred, Colbert, sensing the moment slipping, tried to pivot. "Let's talk JD's policy," they're making waves. But the audience wasn't ready to move on, their energy still tied to the clash. Backstage, Vance was whisked away by his team, the paparazzi already swarming the studio exits, hungry for a soundbite. The producers, now in damage control mode, cued a pre-taped comedy bit, but the crowd wasn't buying it. They wanted more of the raw, unfiltered chaos they'd just witnessed. Colbert, ever the professional, powered through, joking with the band about the next guest, but his usual wit felt strained. The internet was merciless, with hashtags like #Vance vs Colbert and #LateShowClash trending within minutes, alongside memes of Vance's desk slam and Colbert's stunned blink. The confrontation had tapped into a larger cultural nerve via politician versus satirist, conviction versus comedy, policy versus punchlines. For Vance, it was a stand against being reduced to a joke, a moment of defiance that would fuel his narrative of resilience. For Colbert, it was another day in the late-night trenches, where his biting style sometimes pushed guests to the edge. As the show wrapped, Colbert signed off with a wry smile. "Thanks for watching, folks. Come back tomorrow or maybe we'll keep everyone on set." The crowd laughed, but the moment belonged to Vance's explosion, a shocking exit that would dominate headlines for weeks, despite being unsubstantiated by evidence.